So for those who don't know me, I'm the Northwest coordinator here for PRCA Northwest from my kitchen at present, and Lee covers the Yorkshire area. We both work a day a week for the PRCA around our other sort of work in PR and various bits and bobs. But we've been doing lots of things online at the moment. I don't know if you've joined us over the last few weeks. We did an event with Purple Bricks. We did one with a journalist a few weeks ago. We were talking about pitching in a pandemic. And now we're delighted, as I said, to have Caroline join us today to talk about sort of what's happened over the last few months with the zoo. Obviously, tourism's been in such a state of flux, and obviously there was lots of lobbying and campaigning with the government, particularly in the early stages of the pandemic back in the spring and summer. And it really good to sort of get an insight into the work that you and your team have done and are continuing to do as we still navigate through this very sort of strange and muddy times. So Caroline as well, I'm delighted to say, those who didn't hear before, was just announced yesterday as one of the 22 new PRCA fellows. So congratulations for that, Caroline.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to hand over to you really. Could you give a little introduction to yourself, your background, how you got to sort of where you are and your sort of day-to-day role at the zoo?
Sure, of course I can. Yeah, so my role at the zoo is Director of Marketing, and I've been here for about 8 years. My remit, my portfolio covers marketing, fundraising, PR, and we recently added in public affairs as well. So I think I'm sure a red panda keeper would argue with me, but I think I've got one of the best jobs here at the zoo because I've got a fantastic team. We're all amazingly passionate about the zoo and preventing extinction and the projects, the conservation projects that we have here. So it's an amazing place to work. It's a privilege to be here, really. So yeah, so hence I've stayed for 8 years, which is I think the longest I've ever stayed in a job. I originally came in as head of marketing in 2012, and then a few years later badgered my boss until they created the post of Director of Marketing. So yeah, moved into that one. Prior to joining the zoo, I was freelance for about 5 or 6 years when my daughter was tiny. And I had a range of clients in retail, a lot of farms that are diversified into farm shops and doing other activities, and hotels and pubs and restaurants. So I had some lovely clients. And prior to that, I worked for a range of arts organisations. I kind of cut my teeth in arts marketing, really, and moved up. So they eventually made it to marketing and comms director at Wales Millennium Centre. And then moved across into the education sector for a little while. But I've also worked at places like Alton Towers. I was entertainment manager there for a while. So, you know, I've had some really strange jobs, but all the jobs have given me fantastic insight into different organisations and the way that they work. And I think you take something from every job that you have, and that kind of gives you the cumulative experience to bring to the next role that you go to. So yeah, it's a fantastic place to be here at the zoo. I can't imagine not being here now, and there's always so much to do. I think we set this year aside as a bit of an oddity, but normally we are always investing in the visitor experience, investing constantly in the animal welfare, and we have an amazing team of scientists who work on breeding programs and conservation programs. It's an incredible place. I still find myself sitting in meetings and having to Google the names of some of the animals that they're talking about, because at the point at which they're talking about bringing something new to the zoo and I've never heard of it before, I've no idea whether it flies or swims or walks, and Google is my friend very often. So my learning curve has been steep. I know lots of things about, well, I know a few things about lots of animals, but not huge amounts of depth. So in the questions later, please be kind to me on all questions about animals.
Oh, we will. Oh, what a fantastic background you've had, actually. So really interesting roles that you've had. My parents live about 10 minutes away from Alton Towers. So I used to get lots of free tickets in there as a child, and had lots of friends who had summer jobs there. So I know it quite well.
Yeah, my stepsons were about 8 and 10 when I worked there. So they thought that was brilliant, because I ran the fireworks show at the end of each season for a few years, and they thought that was brilliant because they got to come into the command centre with me, and yeah, absolutely brilliant for teenage boys to get access to Alton Towers.
Well, yeah, And so the last 6 months, or kind of longer really, I suppose, how has that been for you and your team? I mean, do you have a big team? I'm not too sure the size of your marketing and comms team there. And sort of what was the whole experience in the run up to the pandemic happening? Were you aware from other zoos across the shores and what was happening in Europe? Are you in contact with them, or did it all happen kind of very quickly like it?
Okay, I'll talk about my team a little bit first. I've got in marketing, we've got about 6 people working across the marketing mix, and lucky to have an in-house designer within that team as well. I've got a fantastic head of marketing, Jenny, who just is brimming with ideas and creativity. So I'm really blessed to have fantastic people working with me. And then a PR team of 3.5 effectively. Fundraising team of, well, it's 3 now, but it was 2 when we began the year. And just 1 person in public affairs. We branched into public affairs a couple of years ago, about 1.5 years ago actually, because we started to feel that we were really confident in what we were doing and wanted to influence some of the policy areas that we're working in. So we do a lot, because we're a conservation and education charity. We work with schools and we're working hard to try and get conservation onto the curriculum. So bringing in a public affairs manager was a step forward in that, really. And we did some work to assess our how well we were known and understood amongst our political stakeholders. And it was really a good exercise, because it kind of said, you know, okay, we're nobody's heard of us really, or very little awareness about what we actually do apart from being a zoo and a visitor attraction. So we started a lot of work to start to bring MPs and civil servants into the zoo to try and talk to them and understand, so they could understand what we do. And that has given us an enormous step up, really. The work that we did pre-pandemic has really paid off when we've needed it. So in terms of the last 6 months, and I think we had like everybody, we had a general kind of awareness that stuff was happening over in China. Luckily, we've got our Chief Operating Officer, Jamie, who's really savvy and was very aware of what the impacts could be. So he was scenario planning right from the outset, really, and looking at what the impact might be on us. So I feel like we were quite well prepared as we went into it, in a way, because we'd started to think about a lot of our team, or some of our team, work overseas. So the first thing that we really felt impacting upon us was a kind of curbing of that international travel, and looking at the impact that would have on our field programs, where we send people out to share their expertise with other partners in conservation work. So we were kind of thinking, okay, we can't let people go there, and we need to know if people got holidays booked overseas and what the impacts might be of that. And then as it started to ramp up, we started to look at the need that we might need to start working from home where possible. So the IT department were deluged with requests for laptops and webcams and every other bit of tech that we might need. Luckily for my team, we're pretty well equipped anyway. Certainly the PR team work over weekends and evenings as well, where necessary, and provide a duty PR service. So already capable of working wherever we put them. And we've done a lot of crisis comms scenario planning around what if we can't be here and have to work remotely. So I feel we were kind of in a pretty good place, really, in comparison to some others. But as we went into it, as you all know, I'm sure it just gathered pace, and the speed at which things happened was quite unnerving, really. And the realization that actually, you know, if you've got a team of keepers working with our primates, we couldn't just run the risk of that whole team being taken out by COVID and having to self-isolate, because then we don't have anybody who are specialists in looking after primates. So the teams had to split and work in different ways. So there were a lot of adjustment and adaptations. I guess the first pressure that my team felt really was around internal comms and making sure that we were sharing as many updates as possible as regularly as possible in a really informative, quick, easy bite type of format, so that we were giving people snapshots of understanding of what was happening, interpreting it into what that means for us here at the zoo. And yeah, lots of internal comms work, which we do. We don't have an internal comms team as such. It's something that we kind of do across the PR team. And every day we were looking at the what ifs, so lots of scenario planning, lots of just thinking through those processes of, if this happens, then what, and making sure that we had a kind of an understanding and an agreed position on what happens if, and then preparing statements and copy and web copy for all the different scenarios, which feels like an awful lot of work at the time, but my goodness, as things were happening so quickly, it did mean that we had stuff ready, we were good to go. And that comes from you know, a really committed team that put in all the hours that I asked for and more. So yes, all the planning, definitely.
I mean, that's an enormous task, isn't it, in terms of crisis planning and thinking about it. I mean, from your point of view, running that communications and marketing team, but across the whole operations of the zoo, really, because you're obviously looking at animal welfare, staff welfare, obviously your team, the running the operation of the zoo on so many different levels. So it's obviously quite a difficult beast to manage, really.
Yeah, it was intense and it was really hard, but it was good as well, because we all, you know, in a crisis, you see the strength of your team and everybody pulled together in an amazing way. Everybody adapted to, or had to adapt to, that new way of working, of working remotely. That was odd, because we knew that all the keepers and the scientists and the vets were still here working at the zoo. So it felt there was a huge risk of becoming a very disjointed team. So we needed to, you know, kind of work on a rota basis of having somebody in the marketing office, so that there was a presence there and we could say hi to our colleagues and help them to feel that they hadn't just been deserted, that we'd all just left the zoo and left them to it. We furloughed 60-70% of the organisation, and that included a lot of my team. So I was really left with a core team of about 5 people. So stretched beyond belief, you know, and I know this will be very familiar to a lot of people. So many people went through it. Difficulty for some people. I'm in a fortunate position. My daughter's 13 now. She's very conscientious, didn't take a huge amount of support in terms of schooling from home, apart from the algebra, which nearly finished me off and resulted in a very large gin and tonic that night. But, you know, again, Jenny's got 2 very small children. It's so hard to do the work and to be ever present for your colleagues when you've also need to be ever present for your children. And then obviously through the kind of the ups and downs of it all, going through the process of redundancies during August and September as well. We lost some colleagues, you know, and felt it was heartbreaking, really. But again, you just have to keep going and keep working at it and do things in the best way that you can. But I think, again, it's that determination to survive, knowing that the zoo is important, that we have species to save, we have you know, kids that need our input, and just that determination gets everybody focused and working together. So really hard 6 months, but in a way a really positive 6 months as well.
And it seemed, Caroline, that during that time you had quite a lot of positive media coverage and the media were quite warm to lending support. Why do you think that was the case as such?
When we've got a few theories on this. When we originally closed the zoo, I think it was 21st of March, we closed the zoo. We instantly had a kind of huge amount of media requests, what film crews wanting to come on site, because the idea of a zoo in lockdown, what happens to the animals and so on and so forth, it was of huge appeal. And we facilitated as many of those as we possibly could. We know that there's interest in the zoo because of the backdrop, because of what, you know, it's not an office block, so we're very lucky in the setting that we've got. But I think we also did a lot of stuff. Our objective initially when we locked down and when we closed the zoo was to retain our members and stay really engaged with all our visitors who couldn't come to the site, and we needed to find new ways of connecting with them. And the team very quickly came up with the idea of doing the virtual zoo days, when we took an iPhone and stuck it on the end of a pole, and no high-tech stuff, but the team went around and filmed and interviewed the keepers, some of whom are really well practiced in doing the interviews, because they've had years of being filmed for Channel 4's Secret Life of the Zoo. So they're great on camera, they're really succinct, and they know the best stories to tell. So we were able to pull together everything that the media needed, really. And I think because we were we were very high profile with the first few virtual zoo days. I think the first one pulled in an audience of over 1 million. We were front of mind, I guess, and that helped. So yeah, we did an awful lot of media stuff. There is some balance where you have to kind of prioritize, because again, the team that were here still had the animals to look after, still had the work to do. But yeah, we were very lucky. I think again, it kind of, everything pays off. The work that you do pays off when you get to a tough point, because you've invested that time and that energy. We had, and still continue to have, fantastic relationships with the media. The team, they go and above and beyond. They will do their best to facilitate media requests. If somebody wants to film the penguins at 5 o'clock in the morning, then we try and do that. And the keepers go above and beyond as well to come in early and make sure the animals are out and in shot. There's many a leaf being waved at a rhino behind the camera when you see them on TV. It's not easy, but yeah. So we've got those relationships. We've nurtured those positions, and we had a really clear message. Initially, when we closed the zoo, we assumed that we would have a reopening at some point in the next few weeks, but then the government took the decision to say that specifically zoos must remain closed. So that was the point at which it became incredibly serious for us financially, and we had to go out with the campaign, with the Save Our Zoo campaign, and with a clear messaging of that, and the fact that so many people know the zoo and have been to the zoo and care about it. The media knew that it was a strong story, so again, we gave them what they needed, really. Very lucky to have them on side at the time that we needed them, when there was so much else going on.
I think I remember the virtual days very well. My children and myself in the morning, when I was doing a bit of homeschooling, they were fantastic, and what a brilliant idea. And obviously social media has played a huge part in the success, I guess, of the media campaign. And at one point, I think I saw a tweet from Kanye West. You can tell us all about that.
Yeah, that was bonkers. It was a tweet about, he shared something about an old planning application that we'd put in. It was a kind of a vision drawing of something called Heart of Africa, which was a project that was way back 2010 or something, I think. And it was a project that was parked because we'd ended Islands, which was our new area of the zoo, which we opened in 2015. So where on earth he, or I presume his team, had got that from, I've no idea. But yes, it gave the local press a lot to talk about, that Kanye was our friend. So just a weird random thing. But yeah, social media has been, I mean, it's a massive task to handle. But the power of a Just Giving campaign that's shareable online. We have amazing images of animals, which again are incredibly shareable. They work really well for us. So everything's contributed to the awareness and the visibility of our campaign. But we need to manage that. I think you've got to be really, really careful. A couple of things cropped up early on, as soon as we started talking about the risk to the zoo of not being able to survive. There was a rash of social media posts claiming that Chester Zoo was in crisis and was going to have to start choosing which animals it would euthanize first. That is not the case, and is never the case. We're part of a European breeding programme, a network of zoos across Europe and across the world. So if a zoo were to close that's part of that network, then all the animals would be rehomed and moved to other zoos who would take them on. And that's a big, that would be a huge undertaking. but that would be the situation. We certainly wouldn't be euthanizing. There's never been any suggestion that we would compromise animal welfare. So it's really important that you're on top of issues like that as they crop up on social, because once they're out there, they fly. So counteracting that with a correct statement and just putting the record straight is really important. We also had an old flyer which somebody unearthed from somewhere, took a photograph of it and put it on Facebook, which was asking for branches that people were cutting down from their gardens. And again, absolutely inundated with requests for people saying, oh, I've been gardening, I've cut down a few trees, can you come and get them? There's a limit to how much we can take. And people meant so well and was so brilliant. But, you know, the lady that offered to, she said, I don't know what to do to help, but I could at least put a crocodile in my bath if you're desperate. You know, it's amazing. Yeah, you've got to embrace the impact of social media, but we were on it every hour of every day and through the night, just kind of keeping up with the fantastic messages of support. Our CEO managed to convince us that it was okay for him to have a login for Facebook, so he was answering some of the questions as well, and I was stalking him like Big Brother, just making sure he was sticking to the lines that we'd given him. But yeah, all was good, and everybody chipped in, and everybody did what we could to keep on top of it.
I mean, what do you think is a secret? I mean, you've touched on it quite a bit there, but to a good media campaign and getting your point across and lobbying to the government as well. I mean, you said you've got a fantastic team, obviously quite media savvy, your backdrop, and I mean, there's a massive consumer interest in and people attending the zoo. I mean, do you think there's any advice to anybody out there who's running a media campaign or lobbying at the minute?
It's making those relationships in the first place and looking after them. Obviously, the power of your story and the power of your message is what will get the attention. But if you're already in a good place with good media contacts, then I think, you know, you're a few steps ahead already. The quality and the caliber of my team undoubtedly contributed to the success of it. They're committed, they're savvy, they know the zoo inside out, and you know, that's just been worth so much. And they have a fantastic relationship with our colleagues around the zoo. So if they need, you know, a zebra in shot, then the relationship with the team that care for those zebras is key to getting what we need when we need it. Because, you know, when BBC Breakfast come in, they're in at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it needs everybody, not just the PR team, to help with that. So you've got to have those internal relationships as well. I think, again, we're lucky with setting. That's one of the key attributes that helps us. So I would say, if you can find something that gives you know, an interesting or different backdrop, office blocks, you know, I do feel for charities that are just housed in an office block and don't have a setting like we have. We're again so lucky with that. It comes with a lot of work, and you know, it's not always, we can't always do what the media want. They can't always get in and, you know, feed the penguins. It's animal welfare absolutely comes top of the tree on everything. But yeah, we are lucky in that sense. And I think also that getting your campaign messages really succinct and really, yeah, it's that kind of soundbite approach, really understandable and really simple. And that gives you such a powerful start to your story, and very engaging. So, and again, I think we're lucky, but it's also, you know, hard work over decades really, is that profile that we have and the love that people feel for the zoo. We, you know, once again, we saw really, really quickly, it's not our zoo, it's everybody else's zoo, and people have a kind of pride and passion for it. So I think, again, if the media know that, they know that we've got value, and that people are interested in us, then that helps as well.
That's great. Now, we've had a couple of questions. Well, one isn't a question, actually. Sarah Donnelly has just said, Caroline, you and your team truly do set the benchmark when it comes to PR and comms. Well done to you all.
Thank you.
Good. And Terry's got a question, which is a good one, actually. How difficult has it been to build and develop new partnerships, given everything that's going on? I saw that you've created a brilliant new partnership with the Chester Races, which is great news and shows there is still appetite for corporate sponsorship and support. I'm guessing the high profile of the zoo throughout has helped massively.
Yes, the high profile has helped massively. We were seeing an upturn in interest in corporate relationships anyway, because of the work, a lot of the work that we've done around sustainability. Our sustainable palm oil campaign that we've been running for a couple of years has really gained ground. We managed to make Chester the world's first sustainable palm oil city by working with restaurants and hospitality partners and businesses who choose to use sustainable palm oil in their organisation. So given that the green agenda, if you like, is becoming more and more important, and corporate organisations need to show that they get it and that they are doing their bit to lessen the impact of negative forces on the world, we were already getting an increase of companies coming to us and saying, can we work with you? Can you help us to address, to look at how we can address climate change, to look at how we can address our carbon impact and so on. So we were seeing that interest. But yeah, the massive shift in profile that we saw through the Save Our Zoo campaign just rocketed, really. And it was organisations like Iceland who just came to us and said, can we save all your penguins? We want to adopt all your penguins. We don't give people the penguins, they don't adopt individual penguins, they're effectively adopting the species. But my goodness, that took off. And everybody else then wanted to say, oh, can we adopt a tiger? Can we adopt an elephant? So corporate adoptions flew. But yeah, there are some partnerships that have come to us over this year, like the racecourse, which are partnerships as we want them. They are based on shared values. They're based on a real desire to do good and to help us in our mission of preventing extinction. And they will last. You know, they're founded on not just a quick response to something at the time, but founded on a real match and a rounded partnership. So we've got some of those, like the racecourse, which is fantastic, and the work that they're going to help us do with protecting zebras and looking into how we can reduce the risk of extinction of Grevy's zebras. It's amazing. So we know that those are long-term benefits there.
That's great, thank you.
When we look towards the future, Caroline, what do you think the climate's going to be like for tourism and attraction going forward?
Gosh, it's worrying. Actually, a lot will hinge on the next 2 weeks, I think. As we come out of this period of lockdown, we're all waiting to see what the tiers look like, whether the restrictions within each tier will change. For us, if Chester comes out in a tier 3, the question will be, can attractions stay open within that tier, or do we have to open but shut indoor habitats? There's so many tourist attractions that have winter events. We open the lanterns, it was due to open mid-November. We've pushed that back and added more dates into December, so it now runs through the whole of December. But that's critical for us. The income there is critical to running the zoo, to working with schools and working on those field programs overseas. And so many attractions have winter events which they rely on to get through until kind of Easter, really, the next peak period. So it's a tough moment, and it's going to be tough, I think, for the next at least 9 months. I think the sector has done incredibly well in being agile and adapting product. We adapted to doing online zoo days. Restaurants have adapted to click and collect. There's been huge amounts of innovation and decisions taken that would normally take so much longer to do. But we've got to keep going, and we've got to just hope that things will get better. It's going to be tough. January, February are always tough months anyway. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. Not everybody wants to do an outdoor attraction. So we've got to be able to stagger through now till warmer climes. And I guess, we are looking to see those days when we can lift restrictions. Our numbers have been reduced due to social distancing requirements. So for the sector as a whole, we it's just that bridging period really. Can we get to the better days and survive it? You know, it's hard.
Absolutely, and I think Casey's just sent a timely apt question through, actually touching on the annual Lanterns event, funnily enough. Also just saying, is it worthwhile running events when you have to reduce the numbers? And I guess from what you've just said, it's something that's an ongoing analysis on your part. Yeah,
it is a weighing up of cost versus income. Lanterns is always good. You know, years ago we started looking at how do we reduce the number of loss-making months? So we know that our visitor numbers peak during school holidays, but there are those quiet months when November, January, February are typically very quiet, and it costs more to run the zoo than it does the income coming in. But as a zoo, we have fixed costs, so we continue. Yeah, Lanterns is always a good one for us, but you do have to weigh that up. You do have to think about what's best in the long term. But we have 120,000 members who are members of the society, the organisation, and they have access to the zoo at any time during the year. We want to make sure that they get to come to the zoo as often as possible. You know, they've had a really tough time with us being closed. They haven't been able to come to their favourite place. So getting open for us and creating experiences for them is really, really important to us. They've stuck by us through thick and thin this year. It's been incredible. So it's payback time. We need to get them back in and let them enjoy the zoo.
Oh, that's great. We've had loads of questions come in, actually. So we had quite a few about the Lantern Parade, but you touched onto that. So we've also been asked about, from Jessica, do you think virtual events can replace physical events like the Lantern? And would you plan more in the future?
I think they've done brilliantly for us, but you do see a natural tail off. We captured the moment, I think, with our first few virtual zoo days. Everybody was locked down. Everybody was battling with the joy of having to school at home. There was a real hunker down feeling, and people just needed a bit of joy in their lives, and we were able to give that at a time when everything was so uncertain. People just were scared, I think. So just the joy of being able to project the zoo into people's homes was so appreciated, and it did give parents the opportunity to say, right, the child, watch the zoo for an hour and learn lots about nature and about wildlife. So we were at a particularly good time, and you know, I think we could do it now, but the lockdown is less severe in a way. The schools are still active, people are still out at work much more, so it doesn't have the same traction. I think we have to be mindful of the fact that we are going to see restricted numbers for quite some time yet, and it's a really clear objective for my team to make sure that we engage in ways that aren't just in person. You know, we can't have everybody here at the zoo anymore, so we've got to find a way of connecting with people, not only because we want them to come back when they can, but because we need our connection. We need to engage with people to get the messages, those key messages across about connecting with wildlife, protecting species, understanding why it's necessary to choose sustainable palm oil and not unsustainable palm oil. It's those relationships that we need. We can't just rely on a physical visit to the zoo anymore. So we do have to continue to try and engage online, but accept that we're not going to get all of the people all of the time, I think.
And so did you monetize the virtual zoo days? And you didn't, did you? Somebody was just asked that, Sherry.
Yeah, no, we didn't. We kind of took the view. I mean, again, there was me, my PR manager, and his number two, our head of marketing, and our fundraising manager, and that was it throughout the first lockdown period. So we were flat out. The process of having to go through monetizing it and setting it all up just seemed like a mountain too far, I think. But also we're a charity. We go around talking about wildlife and conservation, and this was a way for us to do that. So we didn't want to make it available to some and not to others. And what we just encouraged people to do was, if you've enjoyed watching us, then donate, adopt, become a member, or, you know, help us by writing to your MP to get us open. So people paid us in other ways, if you like. You know, there was that exchange there. in future, yeah, then maybe there is an opportunity for us to monetize it. But at the moment, we're really satisfied that we gave something that then encouraged other people to support us in the way that they could.
And we've got quite a few more questions coming in, which is good. Has the response to COVID meant your long-term strategies change at all, or do you have the same goals? And that's from Sarah.
Interesting. Yeah, we're just at the point of reviewing our strategic objectives for the next few years, and no, they haven't changed fundamentally. They're still the same. I think the tactics and the route to deliver them will necessarily have to deviate. We have to take a little bit longer about things. We're in a bit of a financial predicament that, you know, is not going to resolve itself quickly. So we need to get ourselves back on a steady footing before we can start investing in the visitor experience again. So it's more a question of delay, I think. But, you know, things have changed. We recognise that people are spending much more time connecting with other people online now. The shift that we've made to online meetings and connecting with family online, I can't imagine that that's not going to drop off a cliff when we can suddenly go back to being together. So I think we've got to just recognise that there are opportunities with online that we can take advantage of. We're now, as well as going out into schools, which we'll continue with in due course, and having school visits here at the zoo, we now offer online education sessions as well, which people can buy from us. So there are adaptations. The objectives are still the same. It's just the routes might take a little bit longer and a bit of a deviance to get there.
Oh, that's interesting. Jade Tilbury asks, you mentioned earlier that there were a few inaccurate rumours flying around on social during the lockdown period. How do you get on top of it and ensure the correct messaging is out there and being shared more loudly than the false information? A couple of our toy accounts go viral on social with inaccurate videos and rumours. It would be good to understand what you did to curb these for the zoo.
Again, it's partly relying on the kind of capital that you've got, the stock in hand that you've got. So we've got such a fantastically engaged audience who believe passionately in what we do and support us unequivocally. And so they're great in helping us get messages out. So when we wanted to counteract the incorrect information about having to euthanize animals, there's a couple of factors really. One, we were on top of it really, really quickly because we didn't ever take our eye off social. So we could see it happening. Two, we were really quick to pull together a response to that because I think we knew our messaging strongly enough that it was really quick thing to do. And as soon as we put it out, our army of ambassadors and supporters shared that and started correcting that misinformation on our behalf. So sometimes we don't even need to wade in because one of our fantastic volunteers or members or somebody who visits frequently will be there on our behalf saying no, that's not correct, the zoo would never do that, this is what the situation is. So because of the relationships that we've already got in hand, we've got that community really who are there on our side and know us very well, and we kind of are happy to step back and let them respond on our behalf. I think if we hadn't got that message out really quickly, then obviously it could escalate and you've got the media on your doorstep. But we are really, really happy to explain why that's not the position that we would be in and what we do to protect those animals and how we do work. So everything is an opportunity to explain the background, I guess. And if needed to, we would have taken a media approach.
Caroline, I'm just aware of time as well, conscious. We've got a couple more questions, if that's okay. So you mentioned community. So Katie used to live near Chester Zoo and said she grew up locally and didn't even realise until I moved away from the area that not everyone grows up with something like that on their doorstep. It's a huge testament to everyone as a team that people see it as their zoo and take their love for it through the generations. Do you get much criticism when you make changes with developing the zoo from long-standing visitors, and how do you keep your neighbours engaged?
Yeah, we do, because it is their zoo and not ours. And, you know, I think if you look back over the years, people have been to the zoo as toddlers. They then come as teenagers occasionally. Some disappear for a while they're teenagers, but they come back when they've got their own kids, or, you know, they come as grandparents. So we're part of their family history. It's not surprising that they care passionately about what we do. You know, my mum's got city film footage of me running around one of the lawned areas with the ornamental gardens at the zoo back in the early 70s, you know. For us then to say we're going to change that setting and those parts of the zoo aren't going to be here anymore, or they're going to look very different, yeah, it really concerns people. So some decisions are always going to have to be taken, and even if people don't like them, we have to take them because we know that it's best for the zoo, for the organisation, for a number of reasons. But where possible, we will always share our plans and ideas as early as possible and as widely as possible, so that people have an opportunity to tell us what they think. If it's a big development like the islands, which was a £40 million investment and created a whole new area of the zoo, then obviously there's a long period of consultation with all different stakeholder groups and neighbours to help them understand what our ambitions are, what we'd like to do. But I think also they need to see that if there is a really good reason why you shouldn't be doing something, why we the zoo shouldn't do something, that we will actually listen and we will change our plans if that's right and if that's what's needed. So, you know, if we've wanted to put a maintenance facility, a modern maintenance facility to help our guys be more efficient, where we wanted to put it was not appreciated by our neighbours. So we moved it, you know, we've changed our plans. And I think if they can see that you're A, listening, but B, you are willing to respond, then that's good. And always being, always thinking about what does this feel like for our neighbours? What does this feel like for our different stakeholders? And stakeholder management and communication is a really key part of my role. So not just thinking about our visitors per se and our members, but the rest of our local and national and international community as well.
So communication and listening, obviously massive. Jasmine Standish is asking, talking of listening, are you using social listening tools to stay aware of these rumours, as it were, on social?
No, those budgets just won't stretch, unfortunately, and definitely the case for next year. Our social listening tools are the ears and eyes of our PR team and our wider staff team. So yeah, it's terrible. I'm always checking Twitter. I'm always looking at the Facebook comments. And equally, you know, if a member of the guest experience team hears something or sees something on social that they think we might not be aware of, they're there. So we don't have huge amounts of data science around engagement trends, but we do have a really close hands-on feel for what's going on and what people are thinking and how they feel about stuff that we're doing. So I think whilst we can continue with that, that's brilliant. I'm aware that it relies so much on the commitment and passion of the team. But at the moment, it's good. We have got, you know, we do use media monitoring, so we have got the potential to switch further tools on if we need them. But at the moment, we're all kind of really, really close to it, and that helps us.
Great. I think that's all the questions on there now, I think. So thank you, Caroline. I'm aware we've taken quite a bit of your time.
That's okay.
Thank you everybody else for joining us. It's been fantastic. There's so much more I could ask you. But obviously you've got a busy job and lots to sort of contend with over the coming weeks. I hope the lantern parades all go ahead. I've actually got tickets to come along. So
we need it to. It's looking fantastic. I could, you know, out in the zoo, I can see all the sets coming together, and we know that when the lights, when it gets dark and the lights are on, it's just going to be absolutely magical. We've changed the routes, we've changed the way that we work so that everybody can be socially distanced and, you know, really managing numbers. So it's going to be a safe but magical experience. And yeah, it's going to be brilliant. We need it. I think we need it for the zoo income wise. But my goodness, we all need that bit of light right now.
Yeah, and yeah, we do. And I mean, the work that you're doing, I think everybody, loads and loads of thank yous on here. Everyone's saying really interesting to chat to you. Keep up the good work.
I'm on LinkedIn if anybody's got more questions. That's, you know, by all means, send them my way.
I'm interested to see what happens with all the work you're trying to do with getting into the curriculum as well with the conservation project. So that should be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, you're just doing a fantastic job. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We can, as I said before, come to the zoo soon and do a PRCA event in real life and all see each other.
Yeah, we've got a pub here. You know, we need to get you all into the pub and out on the terrace. And it's beautiful. So yeah, definitely on the cards.
Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, lots of thank yous from everybody, and everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.